This afternoon, while I was in physical therapy, that truck with the skeletons driving by was an eerie reminder of what the future holds for the average worker. And we both stopped and we stared at the truck as it rolled by. And we both didn't say anything because we had been talking about how difficult things are for people out in the real world. She's been a person that has struggled with finding her place in the world for a long time. She's had to grow emotionally in order to cope with all of the negative things that have happened in her past. And to that extent, I feel that she has gotten stronger over the year that I've known her. But at the same time, she has a lot of skeletons in her closet that she most likely will never deal with because it's just too painful and there's no point in going and thinking about things like that. Like I said in my earlier video, this is why I don't think about the past and why I don't think about the future, because it's bleak out there. And moving on slightly in from this topic, I wanted to move into a conversation that I was having with my coworker this week when he was visiting from another office building in another part of the state. And we were talking about how difficult it's been to have Gen Z around in our office because it feels like they show up, they don't want to work, they see what the job is. There's no future, there's no training, there's just the mindless, repetitive task of doing the same thing all day. And I've noticed that Gen Z doesn't like it. No one likes it. No one likes going to their job every single day, knowing full well that they don't have any job security. And you aren't designed to be happy in most jobs. The jobs where people are happy are where you went to school to do the thing that you wanted to do, you're paid well, you have flexible hours, you get a lot of vacations, great benefits, and you don't feel like you're chained to your desk. In fact, it's an analogy I use all the time with my coworkers. It's like, how far is your chain today? Are they going to let you go far enough to go to the bathroom? And it always gets big laughs. But that's just the way it is. And we've convinced ourselves that when it comes to Gen Z, we're just going to be showing them the basics and then showing them the door. There isn't anywhere to grow in a lot of these entry level positions, and they are designed this way because people who want careers, who want to be happy at work, who want job satisfaction, who don't want to be miserable, they need things in order to create an environment that's not incredibly toxic. Unfortunately, corporations don't like the idea of creating these places because the more comfortable a worker gets, the more likely they're going to want a union to get comfortable. Because without a union, without support from a larger organization, you don't get anything. Why do you think Amazon and Walmart and any other large corporation would rather dissolve their businesses or make it incredibly difficult on those people who are petitioning to get things that the corporation doesn't want to give them? The corporation doesn't want to give you anything. Remember, if you're not worth anything, then you're not going to get anything. And most people refuse to acknowledge they're not worth anything. And acknowledging that fact makes it very difficult to continue working in a place. If you're worthless and you're treated like you're worthless, that's a toxic relationship in the workplace. And it's a normal way of conducting business. So, as we talked about having to reach, I'm not even going to call it training, just show you what to do and then you do it. And having to do that again and again with Gen Z, especially when they're not motivated learners, because they know all they have to do is do these three things on repeat for as long as they're going to take that job. Wages will not go up. Benefits will not get better. Vacation time, it gets uh, it gets accrued after a certain amount of time. A lot of these jobs Don't start benefits right away either. There's a 3 month evaluation period before they give you anything. At the end of the 3 months, chances are you're not going to be there anymore because you decided that you didn't like the environment, or you realize that it was a dead end job and you're not interested in working at Taco Bell. Imagine if every job, remember, every restaurant in the future is Taco Bell, but imagine every job in the future is Taco Bell because it's the only one that survived the restaurant wars. That's how the workplace is for young people right now. Every place is fast food. There's nothing there for you. And when you start seeing the same thing everywhere you go, at some point you have to realize this system is rigged against Gen Z. And they know it. And therefore, that's why you have a lot less worker participation because they know they're not going to get anything out of it. You can spend your entire lifetime as an entry level worker. I know because I have one working for me right now, a forever entry level worker that's going to reach middle age and realize, oh my God, I am never going to generate a family wage. And most likely, I am going to depend on my parents for my very own existence for the rest of my life because there aren't jobs down there at the entry level that pay sufficient in order to be able to own your own apartment. So let's move out of the monologue and into my talking points for today. So today we're going to be talking about high turnover among Gen Z, growing hesitation to hire graduates, young people coming out of school, and a mismatch in expectations and the impact on future hiring. So, with that said, let's get into talking point number one. 6 in 10 employers have fired recent Gen Z hires within months. The reason for that is that Gen Z is showing up without much of a work ethic. These are people too that took it on the chin from the pandemic. These were people that were in high school, I believe, during the pandemic, and were people who were forced into remote learning. So the soft skills that they're supposed to learn as they reach the age of exploitation by corporations, they never really learned to look people in the eyes, work hard, or pretend to be happy at work. They don't like the dress code. They don't like the attitude. They don't like old people telling them that they have to be in the office. And this is a big one with Gen Z, is that they're so used to remote work because of remote college, remote public education, that they don't want to come into the office. A lot of them don't even own clothing that would be appropriate for even a business casual setting. In fact, I have that problem with my own Gen Z, is that this person just doesn't have any clothes. And I don't blame them because when you're not making any money, the added expense of having to dress for work is not in the budget. And I assure you, I've been through this myself. When I finished college in 2017 and I had to go out into the real world, I had no work clothes. I wore the same black pants with holes in them for approximately 3 to 6 months until I could afford to have a little saved up in order to be able to buy clothes for work. Because at that point, I believed that my rent was consuming over 85% of my monthly income because you're working in retail, you're working part time, you're working nights. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity in order to be able to have a second job. And that's the trap of a bad job for entry level people, is that when you get hired into a job that doesn't have any structure and has very little flexibility and you getting to pick your schedule, every week when you show up and you work at Kroger's, you go and you look at the schedule. And the schedule can have you working 4 hours here, 6 hours there, 8 hours in the middle of the day. You just don't know. and they make it a point to only hire people with open availability. The second you change your availability, you're going to end up with 2 shifts a week. Any retail person will tell you that. They punish you by not being available. All right, talking point number 2. 1 in 6 employers are hesitant to continue hiring college grads. This means that if you wasted $50,000 plus dollars of your money, you're 22 years old, you just got out of school, let's say you do have a STEM degree, the education that you have isn't going to take you anywhere. Because, as I've said in many videos before, there are already a lot of people in this job economy that are looking for senior level positions or positions that take 5 to 10 years of experience. When Gen Z shows up, they don't have the experience or the attitude in order to take on additional responsibility. And something that I've also noticed that I talked to my physical therapist about today is that you're having a lot of these kids that are ending up in the workplace with some level of autism. I don't know if it's just become more prominent in our society, but that autism is preventing them from being able to take on higher level functionality. And I'm talking about people who are don't need to be micromanaged every hour of the day, or if you're not looking at them directly, they're on their phone. And this means that it was okay for you to be on your phone all of the time. I've seen it in college. I mean, we had to have phones removed from one of my history classes because someone was looking at things that they shouldn't have been looking at, and the girl that was sitting behind him was disgusted at the fact that he was looking at things that he shouldn't have during class. Of course, they could have kicked him out of the classroom, but remember, when you're in college, you're not just a student, you're a customer. And as a customer, they want you to stay as long as they can keep you chained into believing the fantasy that your education is going to improve your life. Because education is a lottery ticket. I spent a lot of money on my educational lottery ticket, and I have not once won the lottery because I decided to spend half my life in education. In fact, I was just telling someone about this a little while ago who's applying to a bunch of graduate school. And the likelihood of her getting into a good one is not very good. But remember, as I've said in many videos before, the immense effort that it takes to be successful at life isn't nearly enough. And this is the reason why recent college grads, when they're getting hired, they haven't put forth that immense effort in order to be successful. They think that because they went to school, that that is the immense effort. I'm going to tell you right now, Gen Z, the immense effort that you have to put forward in order to be successful isn't going to even get you to the front door. You are going to have to be the generation that's going to have a full time job, a part time job, figure out a passive income stream. You're going to have to figure it out in a way in which it's going to make your whole life feel incredibly miserable because you're not going to get the job that you want. You're all going to become desperation workers as more and more people that are higher up lose their jobs and can't find jobs at the level where they're at. I have been searching for work now for 6 weeks. I haven't been able to apply to a single job thus far that pays me as much as I already make. That's how bad the job market is that there aren't these senior level positions that are open because unfortunately you're going to have some millennial that's in them or early Gen X. That's who's going to be in those jobs. So when you're competing for jobs at the bottom, Gen Z is going to be competing with the elderly, the undesirable people without much education that decided that they weren't going to go to college. And these are millennials that just don't have the right education or enough experience. Even though you may have a college degree, it's not the education or experience that they're looking for. So, as an employer, you're going to look at those college degrees, but you might turn your nose up at it when you notice that the resume looks a little thin. When you have to start putting your club activities on your resume, that's when your employer realizes, where's the 5 to 10 years of experience when you're 22 years old? You're like, how am I supposed to have that much experience when I'm only 22 years old? You don't. And guess what else you don't have? The job. And that's just the brutal reality. Every single employee that's been hired into my Gen Z position, because those are the only people who can afford to take a sub $20 an hour job. You're not going to build a life on $30 to $35,000 a year. You think about this rent by itself, entry level rent is a $24,000 a year job to live in a place like this. That's how much of your income you have to make in order just to have a place to live. And it's not going to be a great place to live. It's going to be a basic place to live. Because if you want to live in the luxury condos, you're going to have to pull down probably in the neighborhood of $120,000 to $150,000 a year at a job. And that job's not going to be hourly. I assure you. Once you get above a certain threshold, I'm going to say about $30 an hour, the hourly jobs from there kind of diminish. And the reason for that is they don't want to pay you more. And if they make you salary, and let's say I saw this at Walmart, where they'll make you salary at $50,000 a year. But when it comes to the extra day, the extra hours that you're expected to work as a salaried worker, they turn you into a minimum wage worker. Even though on your paycheck, your annual paycheck, it says you're making $50,000 a year as a Walmart supervisor or manager, when you calculate in the hours that you're expected to work, those jobs aren't paying anything. And that's the beauty of hourly work. You get to a certain point where it's not in your best interest for your employer to continually pay you hourly. They have to convince you that you should take a salary position, but the salary position isn't 40 hours. It could be 60, 70. I have a coworker who works 100 hours a week and makes about $10,000 more than I do. 100 hours a week. I work 40. Well, 40 is pretty questionable. But I come in 5 days a week, and this guy's works nights, he works weekends, he works holidays, he comes in on his days off. This guy, remember, $10,000 more than I do. That's less than $1,000 a month, which ends up being about $400 a paycheck. And he's expected to work twice as many hours as I do, because that's why they made him salary. So he could believe he's making one thing on paper, but the reality is based on the hours that you are being forced to work in order to get your job done. Because when you're in the $15 to $20 bracket, there are certain jobs that they expect you to be able to get done. But once you become salary, the larger picture comes into play. You need to get all of your work done that is technically 80 hours of work per week into a 40-hour salary position. So as you can see, it's impossible. And that's why they do the bait and switch on you. They're going to offer you this much, but you're going to work this many hours, which means that you're minimum wage. There's no way out of it. That's just the way it is. It's the way that Evil Corp spreads its cruelty across all spectrums. And this is why I've said in previous videos that hourly work doesn't work for people. Hourly work destroys lives because it's not designed to provide life. it's a survival. Hourly work is survival work. And to people who live at home, it's great. Now, if you're making $40,000 a year and you eliminate the $24,000 a year that you have to spend on rent, then you're doing pretty good. But let's say you're a middle-aged man with a wife and kids and a mortgage. I have no idea how you got that mortgage, but you're pulling down $20 an hour. You can't make it on you can't do it. It's impossible. You would have to be working the proverbial 200 hours a week in order to get into a position where you could pay all your bills. If you can't get there, then what's going to slowly happen is you're going to start moving closer and closer to bankruptcy. And a lot of people don't care. They'll max out their credit cards, they'll take out, they'll buy things they can't afford, and then realize, oh crap, I'm living way beyond my means. Got to file for a bankruptcy. It's just the way that things are. It's a system that's innately broken to allow this. I would call this the escape hatch. It's like, uh oh, I'm buried in over my head. My job's never going to give me a raise, and I'm salary, and therefore I can't get another job. That's another beautiful thing about salary is that you're working so many hours, you can't get a second job because you're working nights on salary and you're working on the weekends. When are you supposed to fit your second part-time job into a salaried position? You're not supposed to. The salaried position is the night job and it is the weekend job. All right, so moving, I had two other talking points, but I spent way too much time off on tangent. That's really what I want my videos to do. I don't like script reading. I like using talking points because they allow me to jump off anywhere I want and just start rambling about things that make me nuts. But in toxic positivity, I wanted to bring up something that came up between me and my physical therapist today. And she said, Millennial Stem, if I was your handler, I would go around in your life and remove every single person that's part of your life that's not helping you, that's toxic, that doesn't need to be there. And she said, you're a really, really good person and you deserve much better than what you'd given yourself. And she said this to me after looking really sad when I said, as I was driving to physical therapy, I thought, I'm one of those people that's very dissatisfied with the way that I look. That's why I don't put myself on the internet. I don't like the way that I look, and I never have. And society has given me the reinforcement that I'm not ever going to be traditionally attractive. Therefore, I have to be alone. And whenever I say things like this to my physical therapist, she wants to punch me in the face because she doesn't believe it. She thinks that I say these things in order to justify where I'm at in life. Which to some extent, what are you supposed to do? If you're part of the proletariat and you're dark, you're bald, you're ugly, you're short, and you're broke, hey, he's single, ladies. And yet, look, he's the lifelong single person. On top of that, you add an undesirable personality and personality traits. You got yourself a person who's going to be deeply alone for the rest of their lives. But she doesn't see it. When she looks at me, she sees every positive thing known to man in me. And that's something that we don't get to spend nearly enough time together because she's a married woman with a bunch of kids and her husband does really well. And so she does this gig as kind of a extra money in her life, but she doesn't have to work. She just wants to get out of the house and away from her kids. But with that said, I'm going to leave this there. This video has almost gone on for 25 minutes, and I didn't intend for it to be that long. In fact, my timeline was supposed to be 17 minutes, but here we are yet again. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate the support. This weekend, the channel has just blown up. I'm getting about triple the views right now than I have been since I started the channel about 23 days ago. Right now, I'm a channel that has a little over 1,000 subscribers, but I have 120,000 views on a channel with 1,000 subs. I must be doing something right.